Right, Mavis. Welcome to a new episode of These Little Victories with myself, Jay Fender. Today's guest is the Commonwealth gold medal winning professional squash player, Gina Kennedy. Now, Gina is the current British champion with the highest world ranking of number 5. She got to number 5 in the world and she's still climbing. She has her eyes set on the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028. And through all this, she's also found the time to get herself a degree from Harvard University over in America. She's a remarkable person. You're going to love the podcast. She's very interesting. Just before we jump into the podcast, I want to let you know that my record label, Spirit of Spike Island, will be releasing the debut album from upcoming band Pastel. It will come out on January 17th, 2025. And right now you're able to pre-order vinyl copies, tape cassette versions of the album, and also CDs from outlets like Piccadilly Records in Manchester, Rough Trade, or from my record label website, Spirit of Spike Island. So if you like supporting independent music, yeah, this is one to support. Grab yourself a copy and we'll see how we're doing a chart on the 17th of January. But for now, let's jump into the podcast, and I hope to see you on the next one. Nice one. Its popularity isn't at its peak, but I feel like that the infrastructure is perfect for it now, because the Squash TV is, you can see the ball.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Squash TV, they do such a good job. With the replays and the slow-mos now. It's just like they've made it really watchable, which I think 10 years ago it just wasn't, was it?
Absolutely. And at its peak, you couldn't even see the ball.
I know.
It was like they were ghosting.
I know, honestly.
Even, you'd be like, oh, they've got a special ball for the television, and you're just like, it looks like there's nothing there.
I know, and that's the issue with the first round matches. Only a few of them are on the glass court because obviously there's so many players. So when they stream it on YouTube on a backcourt, like you genuinely cannot see what's going on. You can't see the ball.
Yeah,
it's just like
well,
that's still an area that needs to get better.
I agree, but I do feel like the cameras are like so crisp now, and they're recording such high definition.
For sure,
it's getting there.
Yeah,
I don't
on the glass court it is, but I feel still on the back courts it's like it's so blurry and you can't see anything, can you?
That's right, especially if there's only one camera.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's all to do with angles.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
You need to have a team on each court.
Yeah,
to be able to properly do it. But I mean, even the tennis struggle to do that at Wimbledon.
Yeah,
on the outside courts.
Yeah.
And they've got cameras on there, but comparatively to like the main courts where the superstars
No,
are
it's true. It's true.
Yeah. It's good. So you had a hit with Satomi Watanabe this morning?
I did, yes.
Did you do her? Did you beat her?
We just drilled, actually. She has her coach, Tiago.
Oh, yeah.
You might know Tiago.
Yeah.
He arranges and organises her sessions for her. So he wrote down a programme for us and we just followed it basically, which was nice because he wasn't there in person, but he just set the programme for us and we just went through it. So it was nice to have someone else kind of set it for us.
Do you find when you get training partners that when you come up against them in tournaments, one of you has an advantage, or do you think it doesn't really play any difference?
I think everyone's quite different in training. So for me, I take kind of every training session as seriously as possible.
Right, you're one of them Terminator.
Yeah, or obviously I'm fair and stuff, but and I'll have a joke, I'll have a laugh and say shot, but I want to win every point basically. Wow. More recently, I've started being a bit less kind of focused on the winning because I'm more focused on the skill acquisition side of it. But if I'm playing a practice match, I will want to win that match. But for the reasons that you said, when we come up in tournaments, I don't want any kind of evidence that they have won over me.
You want the psychological edge.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. So obviously, as the number one in Britain, I want every practice match I play against the other females. It's obviously really tough, but I want to assert myself in training. I've just always been like that, and you might not obviously now I'm saying it, people would know, but you wouldn't necessarily know that based on like my demeanour on the court in practice matches, because it's all very, compared to like a PSA match, it's all very friendly and I'm not like screaming or getting annoyed, you know, but I definitely go into that match thinking, right, I'm going to make sure I win this.
Well, it's kind of like a practice match. You're working on your psychological side is as important, I think.
Exactly. But on the flip side of that, other players in these training matches I know aren't playing at the level that they can play in a proper match.
Okay.
That might be because they don't want to give away, you know, might be on the opposite end of the spectrum where they're like happy to let me win because they want to like keep stuff to themselves.
Absolutely.
Or they're like actually just working on something so they don't care about the score. But I definitely will take those matches seriously.
Yeah, of course. I think it's interesting how people process, you know, their training and the psychological element to it. You know, I've been very fortunate to hit with a lot of professional squash players. And seeing how some just muck about, it seems, and don't take it too seriously. And then as soon as, you know, they're into battle, it's a different situation.
Exactly. That's why some players are obviously incredibly, incredibly good, but may not be the best to train with just because, you know, sometimes...
you don't get enough out of it. Yeah,
whereas, you know, I kind of don't really mind, like, what level you are. Like, for me, it's all about kind of attitude, like, are you willing to work hard? And I'd rather hit with someone maybe who's not as good or is ranked high, but will kind of, you know, take it more seriously. Absolutely. As opposed to, but that's just my personal preference. Other people might like to be a bit more, you know, not muck around, but, you know, some people...
A bit more relaxed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing is, I used to train with Malcolm Wilstrop.
Oh.
So for people who aren't aware of who Malcolm is, he trained his son, who got to world number one, that's James Wilstrop, and he also coached Lee Beechell, who got to world number one. But he's passed away recently, which is incredibly sad, but he coached many people who did exceptional things within the squash world.
Yeah.
And he would put myself on to do drills with James when he was world number one. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it would seem that even though there was an ocean in standard between us, he would still be able to get things out of that training session because I'd be trying.
Exactly.
And there would be a condition where he could only play a drop shot, backhand drop shot, or only in the backhand corner.
Yeah.
And I could hit any shot I wanted.
Yeah.
So for him, everything was about precision in that backhand corner.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, it gave me the opportunity to hit with Rami Ashore.
Yeah.
And I got on court with some wonderful players, and vice versa. I played to a lower level, county level.
Yeah.
And therefore, when I would go on with some beginners, I would have a similar kind of handicap put on myself. So it's like I can only hit one certain shot in an area, so they could pretty much camp out in that area and practice their shots. It good.
So, and that's like the beauty of it. And I think that's why Malcolm he's a legend for so many reasons, but one of them is kind of encouraging, you know, anyone can step onto court with anyone, but it's just the attitude you have. You know, I never actually went up to Pontefract to train with Malcolm, but I know that he was a very, like, strict character, wasn't he? So I'm sure that if you were on court with James and you weren't applying yourself 100%, you'd be straight off the court.
Stop talking.
Yeah. Whereas if you will get the opportunity to play with the number one in the world if you kind of have the right attitude. And that's like the way that I approach the game as well.
That's good.
Yeah, like hit with anyone because you can get something out of it, but you have to have the correct attitude, I think.
I agree completely. And that's, I think Malcolm's whole outlook was not only encouraging players to be improve their squash, but to round off the edges from their ego.
100%.
Turn you into a good person as well as a good squash player.
Exactly,
you know?
Yeah,
I mean, you don't get that I don't think you get that in many other sports. You know, like you wouldn't see Federer going on with like you know, or any of the top tennis players just going on with like a club player. I don't think.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, it would be interesting.
Yeah.
But even like the men and women like crossover, you know, even at PSA tournaments, you know, Mohammed El Shabaghi will text me for a hit. Brilliant. He's often hitting with Gohar. You see a lot of men and women overlap in that sense. And I think, you know, that's incredible for our sport, and it just shows that the level of the women's game is like really high and is keep improving, which, you know, is great.
Yeah, it is great, but I think the strength and depth in the ladies' game, maybe 10, 20 years ago, there was a top 10 and then there was quite a drop off.
Exactly.
Not to kind of rain on the players that were out of the top 10, but there was the top 10 that just demolished everybody, and it wasn't really a competition. But now it feels like the top 50 could all get a scalp.
Yeah.
And everybody's, people are coming through all the time.
For sure. And even when I first graduated college in 2020, so 4 years ago now, there was definitely that kind of big drop off. Maybe it was around like top 30 level.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
felt, there was a big drop off. But now, 4 years later, top 50 is still, there's players coming through like, taking those big wins, taking out top players, and it's just something that you did not see, 2, 3, 4 years ago. So it's just constantly improving, which is obviously what you want to see.
Absolutely. So you went to uni in America.
Yes.
So did you? Where did you study in the UK? Were you in Kent or?
So I studied just at my school in Beckenham, Langley Park.
Okay. Right.
So yeah, just a public school there.
And then you did your A levels.
Did my A levels.
And then you got an opportunity to go
to Harvard University. Yeah. So I took a gap year because I decided I was going to go to Leeds University. I was always set on going to university. I didn't actually want to go professional. I think when I was younger, I was very sporty and lucky enough to be like good at loads of sports, and I felt like kind of pigeonholed into Gina's the athlete, Gina's gonna be a professional, and I wanted to just like find out more about myself other than Gina the athlete, because that's kind of all I ever knew. So I was very adamant on going to university. I knew that for a fact. And then originally when I got offered the opportunity to go to Harvard, obviously I still had to go through all the exams and stuff, but there was just like, there would be a potential recruiting spot if you get these results in your A levels and you pass your SATs and stuff. So it wasn't as easy as there's a spot for you, come. Like there was loads of exams and stuff behind it. But I was like, no way could I leave England. I'm such a homebody.
Right.
I didn't want to leave my parents. Like I just felt like 4 years away from home was just too much. But after so I turned it down initially, and then a few months later I was like, this is a crazy opportunity to pass by. Like I need to at least see if I can get in and see.
Yeah.
So I took a gap year, did all my like ACTs and SATs, and got the scores and got offered a spot. So I decided.
Those are the American kind of.
They are the American eligibility exams, basically.
Okay.
So
right.
Obviously, each university has different criteria for what you need to score to get in.
Okay.
And I managed to get the score that I needed. So I got a spot at Harvard and then decided.
Do you think that your achievements within junior squash also contributed to them offering you the place as well as your exam results? That's what set you apart?
Yes, definitely. So I was like the European champion and the British champion at the time. So
is that under 19?
Under 19, yes. So I was like probably one of their top recruiting spots.
Yeah.
So they get 3, each school get 3 each year.
Okay.
And, depending on who is kind of applying, who they're going for, it obviously the better squash players are the ones who, who are more in demand kind of thing. So I suppose because of like holding the European Championship and stuff, a few of the Ivy Leagues offered me a spot to come and like look around and stuff, and I did, and I just fell in love with Harvard.
Whereabouts is Harvard? In Boston?
It's in Boston, in Cambridge. So it sounds cliche. I went on 4 visits, and everyone was saying, when you visit, you will know which one you want to go to. And I was like, surely not. Like, it sounds so cliche, but honestly, as soon as I stepped onto the campus and like met the squash team, met the coaches, saw everything, I was just like, yeah, I can really see myself here.
Nice.
Whereas the other Ivy Leagues I visited, they were obviously incredible in different ways, but I just didn't feel like it was a fit for me.
Yeah, you connected with Harvard.
Yeah, Harvard immediately. I was like, yeah, I love this place. So
who's the coach? Is that an ex-pro there?
Mike Way.
Oh, okay.
So he coached like Jonathan Power and a few other people. So
amazing.
He is incredible, and obviously he's an incredible coach, but he is just the most incredible man I've ever met. Honestly,
wow. Yeah, that's big praise.
I know, he is just. Everything about him, he's so passionate about squash that he could make anyone like fall in love with the game just for the way he talks about it. And
amazing.
He just kind of he had every year 22 players, men and women on a team, and he just took them in and he's so caring. He would just like do anything for you, no matter what, no matter how. If you're at school now, I'm 4 years out, and he still emails me after like every match I play and stuff.
Oh, that's class.
He is just an incredible, incredible man, and yeah, definitely wouldn't have kind of pursued my squash career, I don't think, without his influence.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember kind of when you play, it felt like you came back when I saw you play at the London Open.
Oh yeah.
And that was, I don't know, I think you might have lost to. The American girl that's doing quite well now? She's like top 10. Not the Sobies.
The London Open, I think I won that.
Oh, did you win it?
Event, yes.
Oh, sorry. Maybe you beat her then. Did you play? Is it Fisher? She's just got married.
Yeah, Olivia Victor.
Victor, yeah, there you go. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Not in London though.
You didn't play her at that one. I'm
no.
confused.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember you seeing her because your mum was there.
Yes. At the Cumberland Club.
At the Cumberland.
Did you come? Yeah.
I came down and I'd not seen you play before, and I was like, oh right, I thought you'd quit, and I didn't realise you'd gone to America, and it was good to see you come back. When you were doing your juniors, who were your kind of rivals in that junior area in the international tournaments? Who were you coming up with?
So Tina and Naila Gillis, the two Belgians, we played a few times at like the Pioneer and the Dutch Junior Open.
Nice.
So we had a few battles and a few English players as well, like the likes of Lucy Beecroft.
Okay,
people like that who obviously she's done incredibly well. She top 20 in the world.
Amazing. Great hands as well.
Yes,
She's
great hand, exactly. She'll slot it in from anywhere.
Yeah.
Those were the main rivals that kind of still play professionally now.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And how did you, when as you were going through like your junior squash, I mean, how old were you when you first picked up a racket? And
so I didn't actually start until I was 9 years old. So I was quite a late bloomer.
Yeah.
But I was actually a competitive runner before I started squash. So I was running for Blackheath and Bromley. And I was probably I was a much better runner than I was squash player.
Yeah.
Like, if you're like born to do something, quote unquote, I was probably born to be a runner.
Right. Your physique and your engine. And
I was, very successful when I was younger, and kind of everyone was thinking, she's on track to kind of pursue running. But I think because I was so good and so successful at such a young age, it just really screwed me up, honestly. Like as a 12-year-old girl, I remember I'd be scratching my ankle to make it look like I've got an injury so that I didn't have to compete, because I'd be so nervous.
Wow.
Just because there's
so much expectation.
So much
pressure.
expectation.
Yeah.
I would try to express, I remember when I was younger, I'd try to express how nervous I was.
Yeah.
And everyone would just be like, well, you're going to win, so why are you nervous? And they didn't realise I did normally end up winning. And so no one even kind of understood how like nervous I felt, because for me it felt like everyone just dismissing it. So if I didn't win, it would have been the absolute end of the world, because everyone just expects me to win without even thinking about it. So after a few years of just like, as a 12-year-old girl, just hating it, being sick with nerves, like faking injuries, I like started squash as well, and I just never felt that same intense pressure. So at about 13, that's when I stopped all my other sports and like just focused on squash. Right. Yeah.
I think that's the thing with junior squash. I played junior squash and I was in the England squad, and I really loved playing, but I found that like the pressure that was put on me from my dad.
Really?
Yeah. And from the expectation from Yorkshire squads and from England squads, it just made me not enjoy it, and there was so much pressure on. I mean, you just have to go to like the British Junior Open and watch all the international players coming over, and like all the parents just glaring at their children. Yeah. And I'm like, and they'll be barking orders from the back, and I feel like turning around going, you can't even play squash.
I know. That's the worst thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. And I'm really lucky because my parents have, they have never put an ounce of pressure on me at all.
That's nice.
And I think, even when I've had conversation with my mum about like kind of my relationship with athletics, it makes her really upset because it was all me kind of internalising everything. She had no idea that I was feeling this way and so stressed, because she would just see how elated I was after winning.
And think
that I loved it, but it was only because I was so relieved and I didn't want to kind of tell anyone.
Right.
But yeah, they have just been incredible throughout my whole life. Like, they're so supportive. Anything that I choose to do, they've always encouraged me. They always, they've never put an ounce of pressure on me. And
well, that's probably why you've continued with sport, you know.
It could be, yeah. Like, I think about this a lot, and I find it really interesting, actually, the kind of parent-child relationship, if that child's an athlete, because my parents don't play sport at all. So They kind of had no idea what it takes to kind of be successful.
Yes.
So everything that I did, it came truly from me. Like, it was all my intrinsic motivation. But I wasn't pushed at all. And I look back at my junior career, and although when I was training, I put 100% effort in, I wasn't doing the extra stuff that I know the likes of, Nurang Gohar and the people who are at the top of the game now, they were doing. Whether that was from intrinsic motivation or because their parents were making them is a different question. But if I, it's that balance between, kind of pushing your child in the right direction. Like, I think it would have been beneficial if my parents maybe not made me do it, because I probably would have said no, but helped me, encouraged me to do a little bit more training when I was younger, instead of just, I'm going out for a party this weekend, Mum. They're like, yeah, okay, do what you want, like, it's your life.
But you know what? I think, though, that, like, to be your highest ranking was 5 in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So far.
Yeah.
And you're looking to go higher. I mean, and you've had a really, what sounds like a lovely childhood, where you haven't really missed out on parties or developing as a person.
It's true, yeah.
And I think that is almost as important, whereas if it's so focused, I've spoken to squash players where it's just like they're devoid of any life experience.
Yeah, I know.
They've missed out on so much because it's just been squash, and all they need to do is get an injury, and that's it.
Exactly.
And you don't have anything to fall back on, experiences or other interests.
Definitely.
And that's so important,
Definitely.
I think, to round you as a person.
Yeah.
So I think your parents not pushing you have done you a solid there.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, I agree, and I wouldn't change anything. And I just think about it for if I were to have kids who were, like, how would I approach it? Because I know now, like, what it takes, and I know that what I did when I was younger, like, wasn't, like, it was fine because, like I said, I had the best time. I was sociable. I, like, went out to parties with my friends, and I still trained really hard, but yeah, it's a very fine balance when you kind of know, like, that might not be the best idea for your training, but you got to do it anyway.
Well, the thing is, I know there's a couple of players who were at the top of the junior game who I'm friends with now, whose parents were incredibly supportive of their squash pursuits, but almost to the point where they burnt them out. Yeah. And that is if you're pushed and you're going to be the best and you're going to be the world number one, and it's
it can't.
There will come a point where you break
100%,
and you kind of rebel.
Yes,
against
100%.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't. That's why you have to kind of just like sprinkle ideas of you can't make them, but just like sprinkle ideas of what maybe is a good idea or not. But yeah, absolutely, you can't push them, because like you said, if it doesn't come from you, as soon as they go off to university, if you're not around, they're not going to train or do anything. Like, you have to have that intrinsic motivation, but you also, I think as a parent, if you do know what it takes to kind of reach a good level, then it would be hard to watch your kid kind of, not that I did, but if you had a very talented kid who wasn't training, that would be difficult, I think, for me to watch.
Absolutely.
And it'll,
Well, yeah. I mean, I got children, and like, you encourage them to explore the things they're interested in.
Yeah.
When they show ability or talent in that area, you try to nurture it.
Yeah.
Without being too smothering.
Yes, exactly.
You don't want to suffocate that interest into kind of going, we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
And like ruin the interest for them, really.
Absolutely, because then they're like, I'm scared to make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I mean, I see that throughout, not just with kids, but like with senior players. So when I train at Wimbledon, there will be semi-pro players there who are fit as a flea, and they get the opportunity to take the ball in shot, He's there, and they'll just hit to the back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you here? Take the ball in.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Malcolm was coaching Pat Rooney, when Pat Rooney first came over to train with him.
Great player, by the way. I love watching Pat play.
And a great person.
Yeah,
he's lovely.
Pat.
Yeah, he's lovely. A great player, yeah. But I remember Malcolm shouting him, take the ball in.
Really?
Take the ball in. It doesn't matter if you miss. There, take the ball in.
Yeah.
And he's kind of trying to make it second nature.
Yeah. And you can see that in his game. Like, he takes it in all the time.
Absolutely.
But obviously in a positive way, not in a...
yeah. When it's there, he does.
So
he takes it on. He's creative, but it's because he's being kind of encouraged in a safe setting to kind of... It's almost like muscle memory.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not, whereas when I see players, obviously not at Pat's level, but at a good standard training, the ball is there to be dropped or taken in, and they will just hit it to the back. I'm like, you could do that all day.
Yeah.
Why? You don't need to practice that.
You don't need to practice that, yeah.
You need to practice other elements.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you say has been your top achievement so far in squash? Because there's been a few, but is there a stand-up moment where you go, that...
Yeah, I think it would have to be winning the Commonwealth Games.
I thought it might. Yeah, winning the gold medal,
yeah. That whole... Obviously, winning gold is like a massive part of what I remember of those 2 weeks. But that entire 2 weeks where we were in the village with all the athletes, like being a part of a multi-sport games was just like the best experience ever. Obviously, at the time, squash wasn't in the Olympics, so for us at least,
it's the pinnacle almost.
For someone who lives in a Commonwealth country,
yeah.
It absolutely was the pinnacle. It was the first time that our sport, for me, has been put on and exposed to the public. That's not just the squash players, it was on, my final was on BBC, and it was just that kind of exposure and kind of public, the public watching and being
absolutely.
Involved.
That you had so many eyes on it.
Yeah, it's something.
Who did you play in the final?
I played Holly Norton, actually.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like, she had an incredible event. She beat the number 1 seed, Joelle King, in the quarterfinals.
Wow.
So yeah, she did really well. So yeah, played
Shout
her
out to Holly, by the way. She's a Ponte.
Oh yeah, of course. You must know Holly.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So yeah, that the whole 2 weeks and just being in the village, being going to the dining hall with all the athletes, the volunteers, it was just incredible. And obviously now it's been taken out of 2026. Yeah. Not just squash though. I think they've
shrunk it right down.
I think people are kind of jumping on the squash's dying sport bandwagon, but actually,
and it's just been announced in the Olympics.
Yeah,
so that's
they've
nonsense.
cut all the racket sports, and it's obviously just because of the budget. But it's still a real shame because those multi-sport game experiences are just like incredible on another level.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully that they bring it back into the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
But is the Olympics something you've got your laser beam set on?
Yeah, definitely. It was so unexpected when it got announced that it was in. Genuinely, I was like, where did this come from? I had no idea it was even a possibility. So the fact that it is going to be in LA in 2028 in 4 years is just...
I was just in LA. They're building all the train lines there, so they're already starting to put infrastructure in place and that. It's
so exciting, but obviously it's a bit like, it's daunting. It's every single athlete's dream, isn't it, to go to the Olympics? And
absolutely.
We don't know the criteria yet, but assuming it's going to be 2 from each country probably. So obviously we're Great Britain, we're not England in the Olympic Games. So you've got to be top 2 in 4 years' time, which is...
It's a big commitment.
It's a big commitment. It's stress. It's stress. Like, thinking about it is honestly stressful because you want it so badly, don't you?
Of course.
But yeah, so it's an incredible opportunity for all squash players around the world.
And I think it also motivates people to really focus on, you've got something, not just kind of as a professional earning a living and kind of, but it's almost like a cherry on top to give younger players something to aim for.
Yeah, and I also think there's a few older players who probably would have retired before 2028 that won't and will stick it out, rightfully so as well.
Absolutely.
Because so it's going to be a dogfight, I think, to get into that team.
Well, yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity.
As it should be, So yeah, all very exciting times.
I remember when they put together a lot of proposals to try and get it into the Olympics from, 2010 when I was talking to Malcolm and Mick Todd and Simon Park, and they were talking about things going on behind the scenes and how they were trying to package things together, and one thing that they was of paramount importance was that the television aspect. We're going back to it now, but so you could see the ball. So it's not like people just pretending to play.
People having no idea what was going on.
Absolutely. Because the thing is, and I think that the real turning point was when they did a super series with that pink court.
The World Tour Finals, I remember,
That's it. And Shibana was still playing, but something went wrong with the court. It was held at Queen's.
Right.
And like one of the supports went, so they had to abandon the tournament on the court. Gosh. But the footage and the angles they were using it was such a leap.
Right.
It made it so good. I remember saying to James when I saw him at Pontefract, James Willstrop, I was like, I can't believe how good the thing looks. He was
it's
like,
actually watchable now.
Yeah. So, and I think that element has probably assisted the Olympics seeing the potential.
Definitely.
In this.
Yeah.
So who are your top three players that have inspired you? It can be either top three that you've inspired you, or that you think are the best of all time, or it can be a mix. Who are your top three?
So easily top two are Nour El Shabini and Nicole David.
Right.
Nicole David was someone who I always kind of emulated my game upon. Yeah. She was such a good athlete, kind of like known as, I don't want to kind of insult her squash by saying known as the retriever, because obviously she was incredible squash player as well, but her physicality was just like above and beyond the rest at that point.
Absolutely.
And she kind of, reinvented the game in a way and made it so physical that the women had to step up and find another gear. So she's someone I've always looked up to, and then obviously since I started playing on the tour in 2020, I've come across Nour El Shabini a fair few times, and obviously like her achievements make her the absolute GOAT in my opinion. She's won everything there is to win, 7 world championships, but getting to know her as a person, honestly, she is... I could not...
She can't be nice as well as that talent. Surely not.
It's insane, isn't it? Like, someone that good and that incredible at squash is genuinely, like, the nicest person I've ever met. But just, not even just nice, like, funny, and she's just got such character, and she's just so humble. I remember before we were really friends, because her and I are quite good friends now, my mum came to a tournament, and... Nour El Shabini was there it was in Egypt, so there was loads of people around her, and she was so like, oh, hi, are you Gina's mum? I'm Nour El Shabini, nice to meet you. Just like, but she's an absolute celebrity, especially in Egypt. If you go to Egypt, there's pictures of her everywhere, like on billboards. Like, She is a superstar, which of course she deserves it. I mean, she's the greatest squash player of all time, but... Yeah. So even from having that from such a young age and being that kind of much of a superstar, to be so humble and just lovely is unreal. So she is like one of my favourite people, honestly.
Great. Well, that's cool.
And so inspiring as well, obviously, because her...
Are you a similar age?
We are. I think she might be like a year older than me, maybe, which is... depressing, considering she's won like 7 world championships already.
Well, she was so precocious.
I know.
She was like, so young when she came onto the scene. I remember when she was 13 and she was like...
She won the British Junior Open.
That's it.
I know.
Was that
under 19?
Which is just remarkable.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? But... And you see her every time you think she's kind of down and out. Even I've had some games with her. I remember I was 2-1, 6-1 up against her in the US Open last year.
Right.
And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm about to beat the greatest player of all time. And then, nope, she just turns it on and it's like, God damn it.
Yeah.
She's just got another gear that she can switch into. So
absolutely.
She's just such an inspiration.
No, and who would be your third?
Third is a good question.
This is the toughest one.
Yeah.
Third one. Whenever I ask top 3 bands of all time to anybody, they immediately give you 2. and then they start scratching their chin going, oh, who's the third? So if it's like music or film, or because they don't want to get the third one wrong.
Yeah, I'm like, because it's no one off the top of my head. Third, I would probably go with Renee Melwalili.
Oh, yeah. Of course you would. She's amazing.
She is incredible. And I just loved her movement, because I think a big part of my game is around my movement. And I just loved like the way she moved and the way she held herself on the court. That's a big thing with me as well. I kind of really enjoy the like sporting nature of the game, and especially the girls at the top who exhibit such like fair nature. I just like really look up to. So Raneem obviously like is the perfect example of that as well. So she's got to be my third.
But also like her shots selection, the way she was so inventive. I remember seeing her at Pontefract when it was when the British Open was held in Hull.
Oh yeah.
For a few years. And they did some of the qualifiers in Pontefract. She wasn't qualifying, but she'd come down to support other Egyptian players and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if she trained with us or with Malcolm, but I just remember thinking to myself, she's quite. When I saw her walking around, I was like, she's quite intense. Actually, when she was on court, she was quite intense.
Yeah,
like, totally focused and like a warrior. And then I was like, it probably kind of calms down off court. And then when she walked past me, I was like, I don't think it calms down at all. She was really focused. But I think of all the female players of all time, I think she's probably my favourite.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because of how fluid her movement is,
and then the shots,
how remarkable her touch was.
I know.
Like Shabini, it's almost like with Shabini, I don't know, she's just so consistent, and everything. Her technique is so good that it's almost like just an extension of her arm.
Yeah.
Whereas with Raneem, it's almost like she's painting.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
There's an artistic, there's a flow to the way she would move around, and it's kind of like, almost like a dance. Yeah, actually.
For sure, I know, yeah, definitely when she's in the swing of things, it definitely is like a dance, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, but we kind of talked just outside the studio before we came in about it. It's like a lot of people have their opinions about, equal pay and how much enjoyment people get from the game, out of the men's game and the women's game. And a lot of people can sometimes say disparaging things about the women's game, saying, oh, well, if Shibagi played, the top 10 in the female game, he'd beat him. And he would beat him, but that doesn't mean that the people watching don't get as much enjoyment on the telly out of watching the women's game. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I definitely don't enjoy the comparison because, of course, Mohamed El Shabagi will thrash absolutely everyone, and Nouran Gohar or Nour El Shabini will probably, lose to players down till around 100, 150 in the world in the men's game. But it doesn't kind of mean anything, I think, obviously, in terms of pay, it's a business at the end of the day, isn't it? So there's obviously always comments about footballers and male and female footballers getting paid more or less. And of course, you want women to get the same amount as men. But if the men are selling out 100,000 capacity stadiums and women are selling 20,000, then I understand why men get paid more, because there's more money coming in. So, but in terms of squash, I mean, what's so good is that the tournaments are the same. Yeah. So the men and women play the same tournaments, the same amount of platinums. We're always on at the same time. So the watchability of it is the same. There's the same amount of tickets sold because it's grouped in with the men. So we do get equal pay at that level.
Which I think you should.
Of course, we all train the same amount of, it doesn't matter.
I think that a lot of people, this is my thought on the people that have negative things to say about it, is that a lot of the time people who say, men should get paid more because they play at a higher standard and they're better, and they normally play at a higher level and could understand the difference between the standards. Okay? So just to put into perspective, your average watcher who plays squash, who have the debate about whether women can beat, the top women can beat the top men, right? And they have that debate. Yeah, I was asked. So after I'd had a hit with James Willstrop when he was world number one, if you had a game with James Willstrop, how would you get on? Right? And this was a sincere question.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, and I thought they were taking a mick. And I was like, I won't win a point if you didn't want me to win a point. There's an ocean, but they weren't able to compute that. And I think like people who play at a higher standard feel that everybody only wants to see the highest possible standard of squash. But really the enjoyment level that people who play at a club standard or a county standard, they get as much or more enjoyment out of the ladies' game than they do the men's, because the men's it feels a little bit more attritional, and it's.
Yeah, but saying that, I mean, the average length of the women's matches are pretty similar to men's now, the women are going above 80 minutes a lot of the time. It's just the same as the men. So it's like, it doesn't really matter what your top level is. If there's two squash players, if you're number 1 and 2 in the world, or if you're 200 and 201 in the world, if you're a similar level, you could have a match that's over 90 minutes and it's going to be great to watch because you're both the same level, know? So it doesn't matter what of course, Mohammed is going to thrash Noor El Shabini, of course, but that doesn't matter because Shabini's playing Gohar, who are
and they're just so
similar.
Phenomenal to watch.
Exactly. So, and it, it's just as attritional as the men.
Yeah.
It's just as skillful. They're using the whole court in the same way. So, I don't think that that's an argument, but I know what you mean about the people not being able to kind of compute level. I mean, I've had it when I've been at like exhibitions, and it's like the pro, and obviously, like if I wanted to play 100%, they wouldn't get a point because they don't play.
Yeah, they're not a professional.
But I obviously don't want to do that because
you make it fun.
Yeah, but then some people think, oh, look, I can almost get a game off Gina. Women's squash clearly isn't that good. So
absolutely.
It's like, I feel like I can never win in those situations because you either show them how good women's squash is, which is really impressive. I train with a lot of the top boys, and not that I would like get anywhere close to them if we played a proper match, but I play with people around like 100, 150 level, and we have good matches, you know? So it's like the women's level is a incredibly good level. It's not like we'd lose to like random club players, you know?
Absolutely. And also it gives young female players people to look up to, and it's aspirational.
Definitely.
Seeing you on court, and I think that personally it'd be much better if we had a little bit more money in the squash game so that you got paid. It wasn't, it filtered down. So not loads more, so you're driving around in Lambos, but, I think that it'd be nice if you got paid a little bit more. But I feel like, encouraging young players, especially young female players, to have role models.
Definitely.
To be able to say, I want to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And
I want to be on squash TV. And
exactly,
it's so important.
For sure. And it shouldn't just be something that men do, because people only want to watch men and only men should be playing the sport. But like, it's just not true. First of all, like women should have the opportunity to do it, and they do. And that's what is great about squash, because at that top level, we do get equal pay. Now, that's not to say that we get equal opportunity, because in terms of exhibitions and stuff like that, like there is definitely more demand for the male players.
Right.
But it's like, and the male will probably get paid more for league matches than the women, stuff like that. But in general, it is, in terms of like as a sport, it's very equal compared to a lot of other sports, I'm sure.
Yeah. Do you play PSL?
Yes, well, it's just coming back. It's called the SSL now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, I said PSL as well. Oh, so it's just coming back.
Who do you play for?
So I'm going to play for Bexley this year. So our first match is next week. Yeah.
Keeping it Kent.
Yeah. Me and Mazen playing for Bexley. Yeah.
Mazen Hisham, great player.
Yeah.
Unbelievable player.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah. And is Ben Ford running that team?
Yes, Ben is running it.
shout out to Ben. Do you know he once he used? I don't know if he still coaches there, but he was the coach at Charing Cross,
right,
for a little while. I think he was the coach. And he put on a tournament there once, or he put it on a few times actually. And I played in it, and I ended up playing this geezer who kept running into me, and it got a little bit kind of heated. And Ben was just stood at the back, just with a big grin on his face, thinking it was hilarious. I ended up losing to this geezer. I was just raging. It was just so embarrassing.
Squash can make you so angry, can't it?
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
The thing is, right, I don't mind losing if it's like a fair match.
Exactly, yeah. It's when it's like not proper squash.
It's just terrible.
Yeah.
And the guy I played, he was behaving. I've never played anybody like it. I forget the guy's name. I think he was from Middlesex, but I think if it had been just a normal game, I would have won quite comfortably. But he kept, he just behaved in a completely unusual way. And I was about this far from staffing my racket over his head.
Oh, yeah. Ben's probably lost his cool on the court a fair few times.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. But Ben's a great player.
Oh, yeah.
Great coach. Very nice person.
Yeah. He's so good. He runs loads of tournaments as well all the time. Like, he's so good for just squash in general, like always obviously actively coaching juniors and professionals, but always putting on graded events, satellite tournaments. He just does a lot for squash in general.
Absolutely. No, you need people like that to propagate interest at all levels.
Exactly, yeah.
And he's someone with great skill. It's interesting actually. I remember he's a little bit older than I am, but I remember seeing him in the under-19 rankings when I was like just starting out.
Right.
And back in my day, it was the North-South divide was quite significant. So like there were people from Kent. Did you ever come across like Clinton Gallard or like Anthony Gallard or any of those players?
No.
So they were all like, so Anthony was a similar age to Ben, maybe a little bit older, but I just remember like people would stay to their counties.
Right.
Like, there'd be Darryl Selby and Peter Barker with Essex and and they would hang out with the Kent lot. But then when it was like with Yorkshire and Lancashire and all that kind of stuff, there was a huge rival.
Really?
Yeah, massive. But Ben wasn't somebody who I ever saw as the enemy.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I definitely saw maybe people of my own age, but yeah, he was always really, really, really nice.
Yeah.
So it's good to have him in the, still in the game and doing such wonderful things.
Yeah, yeah.
He's coaching Isabel.
Yes, he coaches
she's coming
Isabel.
on leaps and bounds.
Yep, she's coming on really well.
Yeah, Isabel McCulloch.
Yes.
Yeah, she comes down to Wimbledon to train sometimes.
Right, yeah.
So I'm always threatening to bagel her. Yeah, every time I was like, oh, they're baking today. I think we might get
do you join in those squads sometimes?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it'll be myself, Ben Coates.
Nice.
Satomi will come down.
Yeah.
And then, there's a real nice selection of levels coming down, but all playing against each other.
Yeah.
And Isabel, it's a bit of a trek for her, but she sometimes comes down.
Yeah.
And she's definitely improving.
Yeah, massively.
And she's fit as a flea.
Yeah.
So, she's putting that in, and, I hope she continues to progress.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah. So what have you got coming up? We'll round it up soon. But yeah, what have you got coming up that people can be looking forward to seeing you?
So I am playing in the Hong Kong Platinum at the beginning of December.
That's exciting.
And then we will stay on for the World Teams. So have been selected to represent England in the World Teams.
Wonderful.
In
Where
December.
is that?
It is in Hong Kong.
Oh, in Hong Kong as well.
So it'll be about 3 weeks in Hong Kong.
Wow.
So for the first time they're doing men and women's event together. So it will be an interesting week. So looking forward to that. I actually have never played a World Teams because it used to be every 2 years, and 2 years ago I was injured, so sadly had to pull out.
Right.
And then obviously 2 years before that I was still in America. So this will be my first World Teams, which is crazy. Yeah.
You've played for England before?
I've played for England before,
but just not in the
like
World.
the Europeans and stuff, but never in the World. So it should be a good event. So looking forward to that.
Well, good luck with it all. And
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
And shout out to Pascal at Head.
Oh yeah, thanks Pascal.
For hooking us up, and Laura as well for
Yeah, team head.
Team head. Yeah. Gina Kennedy, thank you very much.
Thank you.